You guys look like... What do they look like, Jimmy?
Dorks. They look like a couple of dorks.
Get those birds!
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
What? Are you kidding? We got some family here. Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Darkness podcast. Here are Brian, Lisa, Brad, Daddy, and me. Yeah!
Welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. Joining us is Brian Young.
God, I love being a turtle!
The Turtle Dork.
You know, it's crazy, right? To help my family, I got to leave it. And to fix the law, I got to break it.
And also joining us is Lisa Gullickson.
Quick, suck it before the venom reaches my heart.
Wife Dork.
I hope that you'll remember, even when you're feeling blue, that it's you that I like. It's you yourself. It's you. It's you I like. Don't cry.
And also joining us is Brad Gullickson.
And for gosh sake, watch your language.
That's not going away anytime soon.
Mouth Dork.
You may be good at kung fu, but I'm an expert in gun fu. Some other time, Mojo. Right now, I've got more important things to do. Back off.
Yeah, and I'm your host, Darren Smith.
Warm. Warmer. Disco.
The Disco Dork. If you could only sense how important you are to the lives of those you meet, how important you can be to the people you may never even dream of, there's something of yourself that you leave at every meeting with another person. And welcome to the It Modcast podcast.
Was that like the Hustler's Letters page? What were you
Nah, that's Mr. Fred Rogers. Words of wisdom.
Sounded like Larry Flint to me.
Damn. All right. Two different sweater wearers right there, my man. How's everyone doing?
Good.
Good. Great.
I had a horrible nightmare last night.
Oh,
like
no.
a straight up, like I woke up
She woke up screaming.
at 3:30 in the morning screaming. I was so frightened. And so now I think I have to back off all of the true crime I've been watching.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. Like what I dreamt like a combination of like that
The staircase.
The staircase and
You must remember Manson.
yeah, you must remember. I mean, it was bad news. It was all bad news. I was trapped in a house. It was bad.
I had a nightmare the other night, too.
Did you
It was
really?
Yeah. I was at a shoot, and I forgot to record everything. It was
Very similar.
very similar.
it's terrifying.
It is terrifying.
It is. Like, if someone pays you and you're at a shoot and then you screw it up and you don't have the footage.
That is the worst case scenario for Brian in his line of work. Seriously, that is the worst case
And
scenario.
I literally had a dream, and I woke up. I was like, oh, thank God. It's just a dream. It's like,
Darren, do you dream?
I do.
I never dream.
Are you serious?
He doesn't
everybody.
dream. I dream all the time.
I mean,
but
I never
you just
remember.
don't remember them. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay.
Rarely do I recall a nightmare.
I'm
or
the
a dream.
same way, though. 'Cause I rarely remember. It's really like nightmares, like bad dreams, but I never remember. Yeah.
Mostly it's just cotton candy up there.
Oh,
It's not bad. It's not bad.
I could
I'm
go
living
for
my
some.
bliss.
There
I
you
could
go.
go for some cotton candy.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
I went and
It's
watched
bad news.
Action Point, and there's a scene where the cocaine gets inside the cotton candy.
Wait, cocaine?
Cocaine? Yeah. And then that became a very popular item at the Action Point theme park
Oh, okay.
for Johnny Knoxville and
Oh,
his
my
crew.
goodness.
So that's how he can get through all those catastrophes, bodily catastrophes,
Yep.
without feeling that
I don't
much
know if
pain.
you know this, but that's like the worst movie ever.
Oh,
Action
I
Point.
would assume, yeah.
Oh, boy.
Oh,
But you're the mouth dog. You check it out, don't
I
you?
watched it.
took one for the team.
Yep.
Good
I
looking
drank
out,
some
B.
Bloody Marys.
Well,
All right.
Thank you. Thank you
Before
for-
we get
thank
into
you for
our
checking
weekend
that out.
dork, you may have been thinking, man, Lisa's voice sounds really, really strange in that intro.
If by strange you mean melodious and gorgeous and wonderful.
Yeah, we are recording on Father's Day, and that was my daughter. That was Sia, the lovely Sia that I always
She's in the
talk
dork
about.
cave. She's waving right now to us.
Hey, boo boo. So yeah, this is.
She's watching Faces of Death on her iPhone.
So if you listeners are good, we might have her chime in on our review cast, because today after our weekend dork we're talking about Incredibles 2. So stay tuned for that after the break. In the meantime, B, how was your weekend dork?
It was actually pretty decent. Of course, we're going to talk about Incredibles 2, which I thoroughly enjoyed.
No
but
spoilers.
Oh, sorry. I take that back. So, no, but I know everybody has talked about, and I know, Lisa, you said this was your most anticipated movie of the summer, the documentary, Won't You Be My Neighbor?
Dude,
are we gonna pass out tissue before we get into this weekend door?
I should be okay. I'm gonna try to hold it together.
I ain't talking about you. I'm talking about me.
For all of us, really.
Yeah.
But now this premiered, I think, earlier this year at Sundance Film Festival, and it was getting rave reviews coming out of Sundance. And the trailer dropped, and I watched the trailer, and that damn near brought me to tears.
It brought me to tears. The trailer brings me to tears.
Yeah. So I was really looking forward to this documentary and waiting for this to come out. And I went and saw it at the ArcLight in Montgomery Mall. And there's about 7 people in the theater. And just to get you just the experience of watching in the theater, when the movie ended, like literally 7 people in that theater, and everybody is like wiping their eyes like this. It was an emotional but a profound film.
I got to see it twice in the theater. Once with Darren at the Alamo Ashburn.
Yeah.
In Theater A. The place was packed. It was awesome.
Yeah, okay.
And the film stopped, and I just turned to Darren and I go, I love you, Darren. He said, I love you, Lisa. And, everybody, it just started a discussion. Like, I just said out loud, like, I am so proud to be part of Fred Rogers' special generation. Mm-hmm. And then the woman in front of us turned around and was like, me too. Mm-hmm. Me too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, this is just such a profound film. On IMDb, it's a quick synopsis. It says an exploration of the life, lessons, and legacy of iconic children's television host. And that pretty much kind of sums it up. I mean, it encapsulates everything that this documentary really is about. And there's so many different points, and I hope we can hit on all of it between the 4 of us. But I think the beginning of the film, you really get into why Fred Rogers decided to get into television. And I think it was like in 1868. He was about to go to seminary school, and he saw this new invention, television, and he saw how it could be a really good tool to use to really communicate with children, but he saw how it was being used in a very kind of slapstick way, and the way that it was kind of not necessarily talking down, but the way it's pandering to kids in a certain type of way.
The documentary where they show the commercial for toy guns.
Oh my God. and it tosses it out the TV.
GI like goes, here you go, Johnny, and he tosses this M16 through the boob tube.
Yeah.
So good. I want one of those guns.
Well, TV was being used to either like deflate human dignity, with people being slapped in the face and falling downstairs and insulting each other, or it was being used to create consumers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, and Fred Rogers saw this and saw, because kids are very influential, and he felt like there needed to be something for kids to see, and also just to be able to, what's the best way to put this? I guess tend to kids' needs, because I think we live in a day and age now where we kind of discount children and their feelings and what they're kind of going through. And Fred Rogers said, you know what children are going through is as important, if not more important, than the stuff that we as adults are going through, and we need to tend to those needs as well. And I like how his show was able to kind of deal with a lot of real world issues, especially during that time in the late 60s and the 70s when you're talking about the Vietnam War. And he brings that stuff up on his show. He brings up the assassination of Robert Kennedy. And to bring up these type of heavy social issues on a kid's show, because these are not only questions that we struggle with and we ask of our government and other people, these are questions that kids have as well. Yeah. And I like that he is able to do that in a nurturing way on his show.
Well, I think so often with children, we want to protect them and hide the terrors of the world.
Exactly.
And that's impossible. I don't know how what you guys remember of being a kid, but I certainly remember the Challenger blowing up. Right.
Yep.
Yes.
I remember that like it was yesterday.
And so, seeing Mr. Rogers go onto his program and to explain the loss of these astronauts and help not only the kids but their parents struggle with this national tragedy.
You get a sense of him feeling like he had a sense of duty, because every time something significant in our history would happen, either he himself would say, well, I have to go on and do this show and address it, or other people would look to him and say, "Hey, Fred, you got to talk about this. This happened. So are you going to speak on this?" So I find that interesting. And one, it speaks a lot about his personality and his character, but also it speaks to in reference to other people saying, "Hey, are we gonna address this on the show?" It just speaks to the effect that he had on other people and him becoming a spokesperson for the community, for people, for kids, for humankind,
and the effect he had on his cast and crew.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just incredible, especially when you listen to the story of the guy who played Officer Clemens,
Francois
Clemens, and talking about the whole thing with when black people couldn't be in the pools, and he had the episode with him, and then learning when he learned that Francois Clemens was gay, and he first told him, you can't reveal that on the show. But later on, coming to accept him, and then Francois says that he never really had a father, but he considers Fred Rogers to be like his surrogate father because of how he basically loved him and took care of him. But yeah, I loved everything that way, and even things outside of the show. There's a profound moment when Richard Nixon is taking over the presidency, and he's about to cut the funding for PBS. And they need to come up with $20 million. And there's I forget the senator's name.
Pastore.
And all these people from the public broadcast are speaking to him, and he's just turning one down after another. And Fred Rogers has to go up and speak to him. And Fred Rogers comes up there, and you could tell he's nervous to talk to him. And he tells him, he's like, "Look, I got this 10-page letter." He's like, "If it make you happy, I'll let you read it." The great thing about that scene, and what I love about that scene, is like, as he's talking to the senator, you can see the shift in him as he's changing, listening to Mr. Rogers be passionate about why it's important for public broadcast, for PBS to be viable for these kids. And at the end of it, he says, "Look," he's like, "you got your $20 million." And I just thought that almost broke me when.
I guess how rare is that for somebody to listen and absorb?
Exactly. And if you notice the way Fred Rogers spoke to him, or more importantly, appealed to him, was the same way that Fred Rogers communicates with children. He did it with respect. He wasn't like the other politicians, like, "Look, we need this and we need that and blah, 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 blah." There was no anger in him. There was no defiance. There was just, I'm pleading to your humanity. And I think that's what Fred Rogers, that's his superpower. That's what he did. He touched everyone's humanity. Even this guy, like you said, that guy had sat through how many dispositions? And it was all day long.
And he was sick and tired of watching people read to him.
Yeah, he didn't want to hear anything else. And here comes Fred Rogers, not a politician, but a human being who approached this other gentleman, not like a politician, but like a human being. And he just showed that thing that he does with his show. He did it in that courtroom. He appeals to, he goes to the human nature. Not, it's not about the numbers. It's about the children. It's not about it. Yeah, I'm trying to get this $20 million, but at the end of the day, it's about what this $20 million could do for children and livelihoods in the community and people in general.
I love the idea that he was speaking to one child. When, he's looking into the camera, he's not thinking of a specific child, but he's speaking to that one child on the other end. Yeah. And he's having a personal conversation.
He's genuine. You really feel that he's genuine when he's doing it.
I love in the documentary how there's the question of, man, is he really like that when the cameras are off? And is he genuinely that nice? And then you have people who their testimony was, that's Fred Rogers, that's who you got. So much so that presumption
of everybody has to have a dark side,
right?
And I do think that Fred Rogers had a dark side in that his childhood could be very lonely. He was, bullied. Fat Freddy, who was bullied as a child.
Oh, Lisa, talk about the music and how he would.
Yeah, he talked about I love how this documentary was opened, because it was opened in 1967 before the neighborhood even existed, and he was trying to articulate what he felt his purpose was, communicating to children through television, and he used as a metaphor musical modulations. So modulations in music is when you go from one key to another key. So when that happens, like as a listener, when you hear modulation, it often comes across as an emotional change. You can hear it and a modulation can lift you up, or a modulation can take you to a sad place or a dark place. It's just a change in tone color. And he used, like, some modulations in life are easy. So, for example, moving from the key of C, which has no accidentals, you're just playing on white keys, to the key of F is fairly easy because you're just adding one flat. So that's like an easy change for a child or for anybody, right? But then there are some modulations that are hard, moving from the key of F, which has one flat, to the key of F sharp, which is all sharps. Like that's a very hard modulation. And as he's saying this, he has some, I think, public access type experience, but he's very comfortable in front of the camera. He's making eye contact from the camera, and he's really, really speaking from his heart. Like you can tell that this is something that he has considered completely. Yeah. And he's presenting it in such an honest way and not an urgent way.
Oh, also, Lisa, you know what I thought about after the fact? So he makes a comment towards the end of that when he goes, where he has some not
doubt.
Really self-doubt. He's
Yeah, no, I think totally self-doubt.
Maybe I'm being too philosophical or whatever. But like later in the documentary, when you would come across that particular letter that he had wrote to himself when he was expressing the doubt in himself, and I found that extremely interesting and poignant in that you had this guy who, his TV personality is just super polite. All the things that we've said about him up until this point, but there was still some doubt and some struggle and some conflict within him. And I found that, I don't know, I just found that enlightening.
Well, he was not a pure being, right? Like, even though we respect him tremendously for taking to the pulpit of his show and communicating children and helping children through their emotional education, their emotional modulations. But, we then see 9/11, right? And his producer comes to him and says, like, you need to talk to the people. I need you to talk to me about 9/11 and how we're going to get through this. And 9/11 to him was just such a major event, and he doubted that he was the guy to address the nation.
I honestly...
So growth is, for him, was continuous.
I honestly feel like by the time 9/11 happened, he had been on TV for like 30. Somebody do some math. Yeah. From 1968 to 2001.
Yeah, 33
years. And I honestly feel like he felt like more progress should have been made. He felt like, how come people are not different yet?
Well, and what I appreciated about the documentary is that question is asked, did he ultimately have any effect on our society? As an agent of kindness, we are not living in that world right now. But my experience is different from the three of you. You all grew up with Mr. Rogers. I never really watched it. It was just not something that I was ever interested in as a kid. Yeah. But that being said, watching and experiencing Daniel Tiger for the first time through this documentary, I found it profoundly moving. And
that's another thing I like too, because he talks about in the documentary, as a kid, he was never really able to express anger. So he would do that through music, playing the piano, and he would do that through those puppets.
Right? Yeah.
And he gave an example where he said, like, it's easier for him to talk through Daniel the Tiger to say, I feel vulnerable or I'm sad. Right. But it's really him saying that.
So I get to the end of this documentary, and I think about the question of, did he have any impact? And he certainly had an impact on me in the span of this runtime, right? Yeah. And this is such a stupid contemporary thing to say and do, but I immediately went to my Twitter feed and I changed my profile pic as a response to it, because my profile pic 2 days ago was Sam Neill from In the Mouth of Madness. Obviously, we're big fans of that film on this podcast. screaming after Sutter Kane changes the reality to the color blue. He says, like, did I ever tell you my favorite color is blue? And Sam Neill, his reality is broken and he's losing his mind. And I updated that the night Trump took office. And that was like my first, little tiny bit of social media protest. And it was, so every time I see that icon, it's an icon of rage of our current situation. And when I got done with this, I really thought what we need to be doing is opening communication and being that agent of kindness in places like Twitter, which is like a cesspool of emotion. And, so I could not update my Twitter to Fred Rogers because that was like the first thing I wanted to do. Because I thought, well, at some point I'm going to retweet something grotesque that Fred Rogers wouldn't appreciate. Or I'm going to put out a Transformers commercial, and he certainly didn't like Transformers.
No.
So I did like the closest thing fictionally to Fred Rogers I could think of. And that was Star Trek, in the human adventure. I changed it to Captain Kirk from the motion picture in the white Admiral uniform. And I want to do a better job of putting positivity out there anytime I contemplate tweeting something negatively, or when somebody cuts me off in the car and I say C is here, so I can't say this MFer, blah, blah, blah.
SOB.
That's SOB. And, allow myself to have that reaction. But then when I have that reaction, go, do I need to do that? I've already done that today.
You can stop if you want to. You can stop if you wish. You can stop. When you want to do something bad, you can stop. Yeah. To me, I feel the influence of Fred Rogers in myself and the influence of public television in me as a person and my upbringing. Because, Fred Rogers was a minister. He started in public television and he had that experience, and then he continued to go back to the seminary, become ordained, as well as studying childhood development. And then he used public television as a platform for his values. But I think there is something to what's considered old Christian values, the idea of God doesn't make mistakes. You are created in God's image and you are a person with inherent value. Those ideals, when they're secularized, become so universal. Instead of hearing, God loves you, you hear, I love you, other people love you. When you hear, God doesn't make mistakes, instead you hear, you are not a mistake. I do not believe that you are a mistake. So, to me, I was, as a child, I was never really attracted to the things that were marketed to children by Christians. And even though that, as a Catholic, that's not really that much of a thing. For one, I was allowed, as a child, I was allowed to watch public television. That was all I was allowed to watch during the week. It had to be what are you watching? It's educational. It's cool. We're fine. So that's what I was exposed to. But my parents were never Christian stuff only. They were never like that. That's not a regular Catholic thing. So when I hear things that are, Christian marketed stuff to kids, it has this agenda that's attached to it. That has been twisted, especially lately, in so many disgusting directions, as an excuse to be intolerant, or as an excuse to be prejudiced, or as an excuse to point to other people and go these people are wrong because they reject this philosophy and they accept this philosophy, and in doing that, whatever, they're evil, they're going to hell. With Fred Rogers, there's none of that agenda attached, and it's just pure love, just 100% love. And like when they included at the end the people who were protesting at Fred Rogers' funeral and holding signs, you know, God hates fags and those kinds of things. And, you know, Fred Rogers, despite, you know, his alternative presentation of masculinity, was not a gay man. Francois Clemens swears to it. He says, if there was a gay vibe, I would have felt it. So, you know, he wasn't a gay man. And so a friend of his who was a journalist asked them, like, you know, like, Fred Rogers was not gay. Like, what is your issue with Fred Rogers? And their issue was he's tolerating gays. Their issue was tolerance and love. And that's in the name of Christianity. That is disgusting. Also, like, the idea that he was a lifelong Republican. Like, my parents were lifelong Republicans, and I have seen them change over the years.
Well, Republicans back then are different than what Republicans
completely
are
different.
now.
Like, the idea that his platform was public television, which is
Socialism.
socialized television. But this idea of our community, our government, has a responsibility to take care of children and to foster a worldview that is goodness and kindness and niceness, you know? And so, like, I think that I feel like Fred Rogers is, and, you know, Sesame Street, and that's pretty much it. Fred Rogers. I really was also into Lamb Chop Play Along. I don't know what that was teaching me. I just thought that Sherry Lewis was a total babe. But I honestly hold them responsible for the crazy liberal that I am now. This idea of, you know, accept people for how they are.
Vote with compassion.
Vote with compassion. Find ways to love people, even if they are blue monsters, or even if they are in a wheelchair, or even if find a way. Like, we should all be finding a way to help people. And that's what, like, when he turned on the TV and he saw people having pies mushed in their face and their human dignity mocked, he saw a place to preach. Yeah. And I just think that we all need to find a way to preach kindness. And I honestly think about, like, so when he did at the end, I'm going to get choked up. When he did it at the end, like, think about, take a minute and think about people who have got you to where you are and got you to be who you are. Of course, I thought of my parents. Of course, I thought of Fred Rogers. Of course, I thought of my siblings. Yeah. But I thought about you guys. I thought about It Mod and what we're trying to do, creating enthusiasm for art in general. Like, we talk a lot about music, you know, movies, and a lot of commercial shit. You know what I mean? That's who we are. We are consumers.
We're pro Transformers.
If you look at the Dork Cave, we are consumers to the highest order. But, like, really, It Mod is just a place to love each other and be friends and just kind of be part of this nerd neighborhood
and promote positivity.
Exactly.
You know,
so later, when I lightly shit on Incredibles 2, know that it is with love and kindness and tolerance.
Poor Brian's face.
That's okay.
I'm not. Incredibles 2 was fine.
Wow, it took a lot out of you.
The infamous F word.
but you know, I've. You know, I'm so glad you chose this as your weekend dork. I'm sorry I co-opted it, but, like,
no, it's fine.
Whoa.
They're drag racing outside. They're doing a Grease 2 out there.
Yeah. Grease 2.
That's what I picked.
Okay.
I was just like, never mind. Anyway, I
Superior
just
Grease. We all know that.
I liked the opportunity to watch Won't You Be My Neighbor with Darren, and then to watch it with Brad. And I was watching it with Brad, like, completely in profile. I was watching his, because he has, like, Brad, like, was not raised on kid stuff. Like, he was just never interested in kid stuff.
I love the Monster Squad.
And
We've established that.
I was raised exclusively on kid stuff. Yeah. You know, that was my stuff. Yeah. You know? So.
I mean, I found this documentary to be extremely moving. And what did we do when we got done watching it? I wanted to take a look at the Daniel Tiger stuff. I wanted to watch the I'm Not a Mistake duet. duet
yeah.
is the most beautiful.
Yeah.
I'd play it now just in the car. I just like randomly turn it on.
I was
while
whistling it today.
I just love how that is a feat of like, to go back to the modulation idea, how that is just a feat of composition, that reflecting that feeling of even when somebody is saying like, everything is okay, you're doing, like, you're my best friend, I love the person that you're becoming, even though you feel scared sometimes, it's fine. And then underneath, Daniel Tiger going like, I'm pretty sure that I'm a mistake and I'm too tame. And like the way that those two pieces of counterpoint just fit on top of each other in such beautiful harmony, just go, like, to me, I think there is something to being an artist and going through the discipline it takes to create good art that teaches you about who you are, you know.
All right. Yeah. So, highest recommendation if you have not sought it out already. It's opening in more and more theaters. It's certainly one of my favorite films of the year.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah.
So, yeah, please do yourself a favor and check out Won't You Be My Neighbor? That kind of rhymes. Wife Dork.
Yes.
How was your weekend, Dork?
Okay, generally, when you ask me how my week in Dork is, and
full
I'm
of lies.
saying that it's awesome, I am so full of lies and garbage. Generally, most of the time, I'm like Brian, just in the dark, staring at a wall, doing nothing.
Pretty much.
And I just bold-faced lie to you because I want to promote positivity and I don't want to tell you guys how sad I am. But this week, I
Don't say
literally...
that to our listeners. That's not true. You do a lot.
I do. I try. I work very hard. You know, sometimes I wonder if I'm a mistake. But
That's the thing that really Lisa responds to in that is, you know, Lisa, we all know and love her, but she's constantly going like, I don't think I'm a geek. And I'm like, Lisa, you read Silver Surfer, you cosplay as Don Greenwood.
You're married to Brad Gallagher.
You watch the Gilmore Girls every year. Oh, yeah, every day. Like, you're a geek.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just
You make me feel terrible when you say that because it's like, you know, she's competing with me and I'm like constantly judging on how not geeky she is. It's not true, Lisa.
I just think that my Great British Bake Off blog makes me really cool. I'm a cool kid now. But yeah, my weekend Dork was amazing. I did so much
For
cool
realsies
stuff.
this time, though?
For realsies.
Okay.
So I kind of want to low key talk about two things. I know that's not part of our new format, but you know, it's
we just
Father's
spent like
Day.
30
It's my
minutes
day.
on Brian's Weekend Dork. So.
Okay, so I'll be quick. My week started with Cameron Esposito dropping a brand new special for free on her website, CameronEsposito.com, and all of the proceeds go to RAINN, RAINN, which is a network for victims of sexual assault. And her new special is called Rape Jokes. So I won't be talking about it too much, but if anything, if this kind of topic is triggering for you, just go ahead and skip ahead for about 3 minutes. I'll be quick. But Cameron, as a queer person and as a woman and as a victim of sexual assault, and as a comedian, she has a lot of, I don't know what I'm trying to say. She has a lot of identities that she has to contend with at all times. And as a comedian, she has to follow comedians who might not necessarily be as open to all of her other identities as they should be, I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah. And she's just kind of, as she's building her career, just kind of been forced to more or less take it. And for a while there was this trend in stand-up comedy of bringing up shocking and taboo subjects. One of those subjects being sexual assault. And the idea of like a comedian would bring up the word rape as a way to take the audience off guard, and they would get a response, and they would take that response as affirmation that what they said was a good joke. And when they would be criticized for making a joke about sexual assault, making a bad joke about sexual assault, they would be like, well, I'm being censored because people are complaining and people are trying to police what I'm saying. And so Cameron wanted to approach this as a victim of sexual assault, as a way to write a good and effective and positive joke about rape. So, which is a challenge, to say the least. To say the least. That being said, this special is amazing. She uses it as an opportunity. So she opens talking about people who feel policed by politically correct language. And what politically correct, saying like, well, why are we changing? Why should I have to change the words that I say? And her point is, why not? Like, if society is evolving, why wouldn't you want to use words that don't hurt? Why wouldn't you want to use words that include everybody? And by the way, she is changing her language as quickly as she can and being an amazing comedian while she's doing it. She didn't bring this up in her special, but her wife, Rhea, has gone to they, them pronouns, has just changed their pronouns. I just fucked it up. Their pronouns. And they're going by in they, them. Am I nailing this? I think not. But the point is that I'm trying to use the correct terms. So that idea of evolving language to include everybody the way that they want to be referred to is something that's very personal to her. She also has this amazing story about having to call an ambulance when she has blown out her knee in a red state.
It reminded me of Darren's story.
Oh, yeah. Darren's wonderful story about getting up with his back blown out and really having to pee. She takes that story. That is one of my favorite Darren stories. That was not on the podcast.
No,
Maybe he'll edit it out.
You'll have to tweet Darren to know the rest of that story.
I mean, you really have to be present when Darren tells that story. Like, it's a visual. It's the delight is half visual.
Yeah.
And this is an auditory medium. So she tells a story about, being a visibly queer person and having to call an ambulance in a red state and the anxiety that creates. And then it just spins out into this beautiful story about acceptance and people judging her online and blah, blah, blah. It's a wonderful special. I don't want to spoil it. But you should totally listen to it.
She's dropping spell. Didn't she just have like a
It's been a while. Her last special was her marriage material special.
Oh, okay.
But we talked about seeing her at the 9:30 Club.
We saw her at the 9:30 Club. She and Rhea did the back-to-back tour. That's right. And then that got dropped as an album. Okay. But it was not a visual special. Okay. Also, they were part of that. Oh, what was it called? It was like a streaming service for comedy. CISO.
CISO.
Their groundbreaking sitcom, Take My Wife, about two wives doing stand-up comedy, going to showbiz together. The season 1 was on CISO, and then CISO was defunct, like collapsed, and And season 2 was just kind of floating in the ether for a long time. Season 2 is now available. You can buy it on iTunes. I think it's also streaming on some service. I can't remember. Okay, the other amazing thing. So go do that and then donate to Rain. It'll make you feel good. It's an amazing special. She's an amazing woman. I like the fact that she's taking her platform and just kind of, it's just Cameron Esposito tells people how to live. How to live. Just like Fred Rogers.
Yeah.
Just going like, why don't you just think about others for a second? Like she does this great bit about like, you know, like old men at work going like, what am I supposed to talk to about at work if I'm not allowed to talk about her sweater? And she's like, oh, maybe get some work done, dude. Odds are you're the boss. Why don't you make some money? So good. Wow. You should watch it. It's totally free.
All right,
it's
I'm
like
gonna check it out.
It's long for a special. It's like 90 minutes.
Ooh.
But like when you talk about the subjects that she talks about, it goes to some dark places and you have to climb your way back out. But it like the feeling coming off of it is positive. Like she ends on a positive note and kind of like a message, like go out into the world and similar to Jackie Cation's message, like, you know, Jackie Cation has a joke where she's just like, I'm just a white lady meat shield. Just get in the way of bad behavior. Cameron Esposito ends in like with a similar message of, you know, like if you see someone being abused, if you see someone being hurt in any fashion, like just get in the way, you know. If you see something going down, just, you know, be present. So that was really cool. And it was really uplifting for me. My sister watched it separately from me. Yeah. She immediately texted me and she's like, Cameron Esposito is my hero. And I was like, get off. She was my hero first. Having siblings is hard. So it was awesome. Totally awesome. Okay. And then the other thing I did.
Oh my gosh. I want a Weekend Dork too.
Okay, the other thing I did, I'll just tell you really quickly. I saw me and Lindsay, friends of the podcast,
Lindsay.
Decree of Freya on Twitter.
Yep.
We went to one of those like streaming theater
like
things.
Fathom events.
At the Angelica, and it was The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. I read the novel like way back when I worked at Barnes & Noble, like a long time ago. It might be 10 years ago when I read this book. And it's a book about this kid with autism or it's just kind of some kind of spectrum disorder, superpower where he is super genius, but he can't like high functioning, but also just a lot of challenges, a lot of sensory issues, a lot of rules, whatever. Savant kind of kid. And the play opens with him finding a dog with a garden fork sticking out of it.
Oh.
And the dog is deceased. And the woman, the owner of the dog, sees him looking at this dog and going like, oh my goodness, you killed my dog. Now, because of his disorder. I keep using the word disorder. It just does not feel like the right word. Because of who he is, he's incapable of lying. He just can't do it. So he's like, I did not kill this dog. And but he ends up getting arrested, and the cop touches him, and because the cop touches him, he freaks out. He hits the cop. You know, he gets a citation, blah, blah, blah. But so he decides to start to investigate. Like he makes it his mission to find out who killed this dog. And so he starts kind of doing a little investigation, and his dad is like, stop digging around because you shouldn't be sticking your nose into other people's business. And he starts discovering things about his family through this investigation. It's really intriguing. I remember reading the book, and it was so intense because you were like inside his head, and like somebody with so many thoughts going on at one time. It was just like but the play stars Luke Treadaway, who was the posh stoner kid in Attack the Block.
Oh,
the kid with the headset and the dad's car. Yeah. So he did an amazing job. He's got to be late 20s. He's had a career, but he's playing a 15-year-old kid, and he totally embodies that kid. And just watching it being live theater, you're like,
does the performance feel respectful to
oh,
people?
I think totally.
Okay.
And they had like little interviews before the play to talk about like with somebody with autism, to talk about like this is the way they chose to capture this aspect and that aspect. It was very interesting. Okay. The whole play was done on this floor that lights up and also could be projected upon. There was a lot of like gymnastics type stuff. It was it's hard to explain, but they use different strategies to kind of give you the feelings that he might, like the closest estimation to the feelings that he might have. Yeah. And he does an amazing performance. It has funny moments, but mostly it's very intense and touching, and you really feel for everybody in this whole situation. Even with all of the tragedy that's surrounding this child, you really come away with like, nobody's really a bad guy, but everybody is like making really poor and selfish decisions that they assume won't affect him because they don't understand the way that he thinks. So it's really great if you have an opportunity to, if you're in London and you have an opportunity to see it.
You said you saw it at the Angelica?
Yeah, I saw it at the Angelica. It was really fun. It's long.
If it's still showing, I might double feature that with.
It's long. It's like 4 hours long. There's like a 20-minute intermission, but it's totally worth it. It was really beautiful.
I can do long movies. I'm good.
Okay, good. But I mean, if you're double featuring, like clear the docket.
Lost Weekend, Fantastic Fest much. I'm just saying.
It's what we do, Lisa.
Yeah, okay, good. So right. me and Lindsay Soups enjoyed it.
Okay.
So, okay, I'll stop talking, Brad. Jeez.
Anything else?
Yeah, I said,
I know your
amazing.
Your week was I called it her deek. Her weekend dork, her deek.
My deacon work.
She just dropped her deek.
All right. B, how was your weekend dork? You got 5 minutes.
I know. Just kidding. We are running long, so I'll be quick. But I spent most of my week out of country in Canada. I flew up there for a set visit. I went to Winnipeg.
Yeah.
I can't say what movie I saw.
Secret mission.
I can't talk about it at all. I can say that I'm excited to see that film eventually, and what I saw there really turned my mind around on it. What I can talk about is we spent they set us up in Winnipeg at the Fort Garry Hotel, which when the publicist told me we were going there, it's like, well, it's a haunted hotel. I was like, oh yeah? Ooh, haunted hotel. And so I did a little research before I got there. It's a gorgeous place. I mean, it's very fancy schmancy.
Like old style?
Yeah, old style. Yeah. Chandeliers everywhere.
Ooh.
The hallways are like shining level wide. So like when you step off the elevator into this hallway, you're like, yeah, there's a Slimer somewhere.
Yeah.
Now, the big haunting of the Fort Garry Hotel was apparently, it was built in 1913, and sometime after that, a man went out to go get groceries or whatever, and he died in a car accident. And when his wife heard that he died in a car accident, she hanged herself in the closet of room 202.
Did you sleep in room 202?
I didn't sleep in room 202. I did ask if it was open and available. It was not. I did get off. I was in room 531.
Okay.
And I didn't see shit.
No tiny Sam Jackson in you.
No.
God damn it.
But so I did go over to room 202 and I put my ear to the door. I literally did that.
I believe
you can see my tweet of the door. I took a photo of it and I heard nothing. There was somebody inside when I put my ear to the door. They were watching television. So it could have been the ghost.
Right.
But apparently, like, this woman will appear in white as an apparition. Sometimes in that room, the walls will bleed red. And a custodian, like 10 years ago, found some candles positioned in a unique pattern, an undiscernible pattern. But here's the thing. Like I read Wikipedia. Mm-hmm. I look all over the internet. I can't find anyone to tell me what is the name of this supposed suicide victim. Yeah. I can't find any real details associated with this supposed haunting. And I slept great. And I had a wonderful omelet the next day.
Yeah.
They had pretty good coffee and a decent croissant.
What did you think of Tim Hortons?
Well, so the day after the film set visit was my last day. I took that opportunity to find a Tim Hortons. I was like, if I'm in Canada, I'm going to do something Canadian.
Yeah.
And the closest Canadian thing I could find was that. The place I ate, they didn't have poutine on the menu, so that was lame. But Tim Hortons was okay. I mean, it's basically McDonald's breakfast food, not as good.
Damn.
Yeah, I like McDonald's. I like a bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit.
Yeah.
That's a delicacy to me.
I like it too, but how hard is it to top that?
And they didn't do it. I thought their hash brown was also too dry. The
Take that,
coffee
Canada.
was good. The coffee was good. I enjoyed walking around Winnipeg.
Yeah. How was the weather over there?
It was. They were like, it's really warm, and it was like 60 degrees. I was like, jeez. It's like, guys, you don't know. You got to come to DC sometimes. Because right now, today on Father's Day, it's hot as balls out there. But I enjoyed my trip, and I will be able to post that set visit sometime in 2019.
Damn.
I think the movie comes out in February, so maybe I'll be able to post the set visit in the fall. But they're going to have to tell me. I talked to some really amazing people, at least one childhood icon, which was super surreal. And everybody was crazy nice. I also took the opportunity to read a bunch of comic books. I brought a lot with me. Usually when I go traveling, it's like, I'll take one trade paperback. But this time I was like, I'll take 4 trade paperbacks. And because I had a layover in Chicago, I read everything. I finally got to Jeff Lemire and Dean Ormston's Black Hammer series from Dark Horse Comics. I loved it. The basic idea is there's a group of superheroes from Spiral City, and they're all kind of stand-ins for Thor, and there's a stand-in who could be Martian Manhunter, and there's a stand-in who could be Captain America and Shazam. And Jeff Lemire does his own little tweaks on all these iterations. And they save the city from Anti-God, who's basically Darkseid. And when they save the city from the Anti-God, they are teleported mysteriously to a Midwestern American town, and they're trapped within the borders of that town. And if they try to leave, all their flesh explodes off of their bodies.
Oh, yeah.
And Black Hammer is the Thor-like character who, when they woke up in this Midwestern town, was like, I can get out of here, don't worry. And then he had all his skin blown off. And the it's all about how these heroes are having to settle into very ordinary lives. And the Shazam character's name is Golden Gale, and she's a child, but she's really like an 80-year-old woman trapped in the body of this child, and she's forced to go to school, and she hates it. She just wants to smoke cigarettes all day.
Yeah.
You know? The principals won't let her smoke. So there's a little bit of a mystery. The first 2 trade paperbacks. There's a character from Spiral City who's the daughter of Black Hammer, and she's trying to figure out, where did her dad go? Where did these other costumed heroes disappear to? And it's about unraveling that mystery. And by the end of the 2nd volume, we get a little bit of an idea of that, but it's going to be a long story, I think. And that's kind of exciting as well. Okay. It's really just fun to see Jeff Lemire go like, this is what my version of Martian Manhunter would be like. This is my version of Adam Strange.
Do you ever feel any type of way when that happens, or have you just been in comics so long that
it happens all the time? It is par for the course, and sometimes you're just like, yeah, I get it. This guy's the Flash, right? But Jeff Lemire has a very indie style, and he's not going to approach comic books or comic book archetypes the way you see these characters done in other series. Like Jonathan Hickman did a version of the Justice League in New Avengers, which was kind of cute, but there wasn't a lot of depth to it. Right. I think what Dark Horse and Jeff Lemire are allowed to do is make very adult versions of these archetypes, similar to what Alan Moore did with Watchmen, but maybe not as nihilistic. I highly recommend it. And what's cool is like the main villain is Sherlock Frankenstein, and he's basically a zombie Frankenstein monster-like character mixed with Lex Luthor.
Yeah,
and he's set up as being like the main villain of Black Hammer. But the more you learn about him, you're like, he's actually a pretty good guy. Yeah. And so when you get done with the second volume of Black Hammer, they've written a Sherlock Frankenstein spin-off title that delves into, his pain. And I also really, really like that.
Yeah.
So I read those 3 trade paperbacks while I was traveling around.
The art is really cool.
Yeah, the art's really cool. Dean Ormston, he was illustrating Black Hammer, and then he had a stroke after the first arc. So maybe that's when Sherlock Frankenstein happened, because he had to relearn how to draw after the stroke. And he did. And like you look at his artwork later on in the series, and you're like, looks like it always did.
That's super impressive.
Yeah.
Somebody who draws like that's.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. There's only 2 trade paperbacks right now, plus Sherlock Frankenstein.
Yeah.
They're about $17.99 a piece. Go out and get them. And through flashbacks, you learn more about Black Hammer, the Thor character, and he's just super cool. And I'd like many action figures of him.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna give this a read.
Yeah, please do.
The Superman books.
And so yeah, that was my weekend dork. I also read finally Batman Metal. That Greg Capullo did. The art's awesome, Darren.
Yeah?
Yeah, super great art.
But that's...
it's fine.
Damn, really?
Yeah, it's a big fine. It's a Lisa fine.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
For my weekend dork, of course, I took my mini-me to see Incredibles 2, so we were talking about that at the
We are so good at talking.
We'll be talking about that for our review cast. But I also saw, and in addition to catching up on, or attempting to catch up on Westworld, I got to see Superfly. I didn't go to the movies as much this week. I do want to see Hearts Beat Loud.
Yeah, I really want to see that.
I really want to see that one.
2001 is also back in theaters finally.
That's
the 70 millimeter.
Is it?
It's coming to the AFI, and Keir Dullea is actually going to be in attendance for one of those screenings, and we'll be there.
Yeah, I'll be there.
But it's also at Tyson's Corner right now in 70 millimeter.
I kind of feel like I need to see it in the AFI auditorium.
Yeah, I'm doing both. I told Lisa, I was like, I love this movie. We're watching it at least twice.
Yeah. Is it in the Dolby?
No, it's not in the Dolby.
Damn it. All right. Anyway, one of the reasons that I've been busy as far as being online, because E3 came and went last weekend. E3 is basically Comic-Con for like video games.
Boring.
And man, you know what? When we're done with this, I'm gonna text you the link to the trailer to a few games, and these are games that are cinematic and narrative driven. You still play them like a regular video game, but I mean leaps and bounds as far as like where we've come in storytelling and gameplay and what we think of when we typically think of a video game. Extremely impressive. Some stuff that I think you'd really dig, B. But outside of that, before I talk about Superfly, I want to talk about I teased some footage of Captain Marvel that I got to see. Brad just told me that it's available on Facebook in rough form. And
it looks like butt, Darren.
While Brad is not too impressed, I'm excited about the film.
I am excited about the film. I'm just saying, if that's actual footage, I'm not impressed by it.
Yeah. One of the things I do want to note, because I saw a clear version of the footage, I read that the movie takes place in the 90s.
Right.
But from the footage that I saw, I don't see anything indicative of that. And so there's a lot of like future tech and alien tech like in the trailer. I don't
Are
know
those jets F-14s? Like, those don't look like those look like contemporary.
I think those are Raptors. Those are the ones like the Starscream,
yeah.
right? So I think that portion of the film is taking place in the present. So seeing these different elements from our current time period, but also having the information that the movie is supposed to take place in the 90s, I do find it interesting, and I'm very curious as to what that's going to look like as far as the timeline for the movie. Is it all in the 90s, or is it going to be some time
or
travel?
Is that footage total BS?
Or is it total BS? The footage, Brad is so skeptical, but I love it. But yeah, so And now it's online. It's in pretty bad form, but you can check it out yourself.
We've got to get a Captain Marvel trailer for Ant-Man, right?
I hope so.
You don't think so?
No.
No, I mean, Brian's the trailer dork. But you're like, when do you think we're going to get a trailer for Captain Marvel?
I mean, they'll probably release it online, but I'm thinking maybe by the end of the summer, a teaser. We probably get a teaser by.
When is it? When is it dropping? When does the movie come out?
March 8th.
March. Yeah. You don't think they'll have it ready for Ant-Man, huh?
They should start promoting it now.
Could, but I highly doubt it. But if they, I mean, it'd be a perfect opportunity to at least drop a teaser.
Yeah.
So we can see.
All right. I do want to talk about Superfly quickly. This is the movie directed by Director X. Director X started out doing commercials and music videos. He was a protege of Hype Williams. If you're not familiar with Hype Williams, back in the 90s and up until the early 2000s, Hype Williams was a prolific music video director in regards to hip hop and R&B, and even some genres outside of that. He was even at one point tapped to direct the Speed Racer film, starring Johnny Depp way back in the days.
He directed Belly, right?
He directed Belly, and he comes from that school of he came up with F. Gary Gray and things like that. Anyway, Director X, he used to be known as Little X. He started out directing videos for 90s hip hop acts. Most recently, Hotline Bling, Drake's super uber popular Hotline Bling that went viral. He directed that video. So he's had a long career in music videos. He only started directing feature films in 2014. I think he had his directorial debut was a movie called Undone, if I'm not mistaken. I have not seen that. But this film, he has the production company of Silver Pictures behind him, Joel Silver, if you don't know who that is. And he is the producer, and that's the production house that created the Matrix trilogy.
Action Jackson.
Yes, that's true. Also, classics like Swordfish.
Lethal Weapon.
Yeah. So I would say this. When I've seen the movie on Wednesday, and since then I've been thinking about it. And the more I've been thinking about it, I've been torn on the film. If you wanted a synopsis, it's basically a remake of the 70s Superfly starring Ron O'Neal. But instead of it being about a pimp wanting to get out of the game, it's about a drug dealer wanting to get out of the game. It's that one last job cliche that you have, but they do something different with it. And that was one of the strong points of this film that was surprising to me. The script or screenplay is by Alex T, if I'm pronouncing his last name right, T-S-E. And he elevates this material, and it ended up being a lot better than it had any right to be. It was really enjoyable. But one of the things that stuck out to me a little bit while I was watching it, but definitely in the days since watching it. So it's about a drug dealer who is in Atlanta, and he's been so smart to keep himself off the radar that he has no arrest record. He's not under indictment. He's not even under surveillance. Like no one knows about him. He's been so smart. So the movie doesn't start off with him rising to this level. He's already there. So that was one thing that I found unique and different about it.
I kind of appreciate that.
Yes. And so he's already there. And so within the first act, there's an inciting incident that causes him to say, you know what? That's not the first time I've been shot at, but it's going to be the last time.
Is Freddy there? Does Freddy get dead?
Not Freddy. But actually, no one does. But he says, you know what? I'm done with this lifestyle. I need to get out. And Jason Mitchell, who from Mudbound and from Straight Outta Compton and Kong, he is his right-hand man. He's his Manny, if you will, if we're going to do a comparison to Scarface. And this is kind of what I took into the movie. Even though this is a remake of Superfly or reboot or what have you, I still hold it up as the closest correlation to a Scarface, except for the black audience, the hood. And the thing about that is Scarface, the Al Pacino version of the character in that movie, Brian De Palma's film, is such a huge staple in the black and hip hop community. It's this guy who has less than nothing, who comes from a place where, his people are, just oppressed or whatever. And he comes to this country and he cuts his own bloody path to his American dream, and he rises, but he also falls. So it's the rise and fall. But it's seeing this underdog come from nothing and then have everything, even though he loses it at the end. And so there was this huge appeal about that within, at the very least, the black community and the hip hop community and stuff like that. So you have many references in music and musical acts. We have a rapper from Houston named Scarface himself. And so when seeing this movie, and it's even been described by the director as a fantasy, so to speak. So I had that in mind while watching the film, and I'm also looking at it like the black version of Scarface, right? The black equivalent of that. So there's a lot of excess on display.
Sure.
But the thing about the title character, Youngblood Priest, is that he tries to subvert that and goes the opposite of that. He's maintained anonymity so long because he doesn't want to be overly flashy. And he chastises his crew when they do a score and they immediately buy like an extremely expensive wristwatch. And he says, well, why do you have that? Because if a cop sees you with that, a young black man with this watch that costs thousands of dollars, it's going to raise questions. They're going to ask how you got that, and then that's going to end up back to me. That's how we've gotten to this point, as we've avoided that. So he's not about being overt and flashy with his money. He has a low rent furniture store in Atlanta, because this takes place in Atlanta. He's a low rent furniture store that he uses as a front, and so he's all about maintaining anonymity and staying low key. But there are other people, when they go to the underworld or the underbelly or this subculture in Atlanta, they go to places where there are people like him who don't share that philosophy, and they do revel in the excess. And so there's a B, you had an interview with the costume designer. She talks about going to some of the,
Mason.
Yes, she mentions the Masquerade. And that's a club, a fictional club in the movie, but it's modeled after a real life Atlanta club / strip club. And so when you go in there, it's all about the excess, like clubs are. You have the people, the girls on the poles, and you have the other people in there just like throwing money. They're making it rain. There's money everywhere, right? And so I see this, and I don't know, like I feel a certain type of way in the pit of my stomach, if that even it makes sense. But I'll get to why in a moment. And so I'm like, okay, but this is a fantasy. This is their homage to Superfly. This is their homage to like Scarface. Okay. So then there's a part later on in the movie where one of Priest's his associates, they're at this celebration at Priest's home. There's a whole bunch of people there, and one of his associates is on the couch with a woman, and his either his girlfriend or his wife walks in, and obviously, rightfully so, she's livid, and they get to a shouting match in front of all these people, and then the two women get into a fight. And so this scene happens, and like that feeling in the pit of my stomach is exacerbated. So then the rest of the movie happens, and there's some interesting things happening with like corrupt police. They speak on issues like police officers shooting unarmed black people and stuff like that. They tackle those things. And then the movie happens and it ends, and I'm not going to spoil the movie, but like I was looking at why I was feeling a certain way when looking at those scenes, right? And you know what it comes down to? While the movie is well made, the performances are good. Again, it's not like, it doesn't feel like a BET movie of the week or whatever. It actually feels a lot better than that, right? But the depiction of what I've come to the conclusion is the depiction of the two women fighting, the depiction of, you know, the young, these are black men, young black men in the club. There's a rival gang called the Snow Patrol, right? And it's pretty cool because like they're in all white, right? And so of course it just looks ridiculous. But I mean, if this is a fantasy, which is what I took it as, it's pretty badass. Like everyone in his entourage is all white. Their freaking weapons are all white. Their cars or whatever. So it's kind of cool, right? But so the Snow Patrol's in the club, and they're like throwing all this money, and everyone's just throwing this money around, right? You know, on the strippers and stuff. And so I felt like, and I came to the conclusion that if this movie had come out anytime before this year, I probably would have been, in love with the movie. Maybe not in love with it, but that's a pretty good gangster picture, right? Because that's ultimately what it is. It's a gangster pick, right? Like your Scarface, like New Jack City, and movies like that, right? But Black Panther came out, and seeing those two women get into a fight, hair pulling in front of these people at this party over this guy, and display their anger in this way, like this ignorance in this way. Like I don't like that depiction. Granted, that happens. I've been around people when that happens. It happens. But I'm at a point now where, and I think
you don't want that stereotype.
Black culture is at a point now where we're better than that. Ryan Coogler has shown that we're better than that. Chadwick Boseman has shown that we're better than that. Denai Guerrero has shown like we're better than that. Women are better than that. Women are strong. Women get their man to take the knee. Denai Guerrero, her character in Black Panther, got her husband to cease and stop the fight. He said he bowed before her and said, "You know what? I submit to you." And so I think that culturally, while there's a part of Black culture and the younger generation or the hip hop community or whatever that may find some entertainment in that, because obviously you still have music videos where people are all about the excess and stuff like that. That's part of the music business. But I still think that this version of Superfly, this version of Priest, he's very smart. He's very smart and to use. He transfers his money to like Bitcoin instead of cash, so it can't be traced. As far as like maintaining a low profile and not being overtly flashy and all about the bling and stuff like that. He's been very intelligent in the strategic steps that he's taking to succeed. But that type of ingenuity or whatever would be better served if that was a young Black man who was doing something positive, who was using that intelligence in a legitimate business sense and legitimate business period. And so I don't know, like just I had this epiphany, like, man, like Black Panther has literally changed the game. And it might not seem like something that's overt or out there or even in the subconscious or the conscious right now, but I guarantee you more and more of this particular opinion is going to start popping up. And that I started talking about Superfly, the new movie, but it's circling back around to just how profound of a cultural impact that Black Panther has had, at the very least for me. And I don't know, like I understood, and I still understand, like when Black Panther first came out and everyone's just in love with it, and the Black community is talking about how uplifted they feel and how inspired they are by it. I mean, I get it. I got it then. But for that to manifest itself through my viewing of this other movie was something that was unexpected. I mean, it crystallized it, and it happened to me as far as is elevating my expectations and my need to see Black excellence. And it doesn't have to be in that way. Yeah, it's cool to have these fantasies, and you have like your masculine fantasy about, having the power and the money and the cars and things like that. But T'Challa has power, and that power comes from his dignity and his respect, and it comes from the people around him, not from the leaf or whatever. The power in having people wanting to and be willing to follow him to the end of the earth into battle and whatever. And that power is infinitely more appealing to me than a guy who has millions and almost $1 billion in Bitcoin money and who can go and escape to Montenegro or whatever, Montenegro. And I don't know, like, does that make any sense to me?
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
And so I don't know, I just had this, and this wasn't like, again, like this came like after seeing the film. This happened, I would say, I saw it Wednesday. I would say Friday night into Saturday, and mostly Saturday, I was thinking about this like off and on, either in the front of my mind or the back of my mind. And so I don't know. I just wanted to point that out. And I'm not saying that if you want to go see a movie just for shits and giggles, just to waste an hour and a half, 2 hours, you know, by all means, go see Superfly. Again,
I'm seeing it tomorrow night.
It's not a terrible movie, but that for me personally, that was a realization that I came to after watching the film, and I think that's for me. I just felt like that was pretty telling. Not that Ryan Coogler's Black Panther needs any more validity, but I just felt like that's pretty telling about the strength and the power in that film. So that was my weekend dork. All right, stay tuned. When we come back from the break, we're gonna do our good, the bad, the ugly about Brad Bird's next installment into the Incredibles. I guess it's a franchise now.
Yeah.
Incredibles 2. So stay tuned after the break. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Liz from People I Think Are Cool, a bi-weekly podcast where I interview my favorite creatives from across the globe. If you're looking for a dose of creative inspiration, then go to peopleithinkarecool.com or subscribe to People I Think Are Cool on iTunes and Stitcher.
You like film, from cult to classic, from blockbuster to B-movies. And there just isn't that one place with all the fan fervor and passion that's covering the kind of mad, diverse brilliance that you love.
Well, that's where you're wrong.
AfterMovieDiner.com is that fan-built movie nirvana just for you, featuring the sweet, sweet writings of the wife dork herself. AfterMovieDiner.com. Go there. Be the best you can be.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're here to talk about The Incredibles 2.
Yeah.
So this movie, if going by as of right now, currently has done 180 million domestic box office, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty big.
Eat it, Solo.
So that's the biggest opening for had the biggest opening for an animated film of all time.
Jeez, really?
Broke some box office record, yeah. So extremely popular with the folks. This is only opening weekend, so
14 years of anticipation for this thing.
Yes, a long time. And being that it is opening during the summer months, pretty sure this movie is going to have legs. As there's going to be a lot of kids not in school.
It's going to compete against Jurassic World though next week.
Oh, that's true.
Is anybody interested in Jurassic World? I guess there are people who are interested.
Maybe
Jurassic World made $1 billion, the first one. Or whatever we consider that.
It's this generation's Avatar.
Oh. So is Fallen Kingdom going to be this generation's Avatar 2?
Possibly.
Has Avatar 2 happened yet?
No.
Okay, just checking.
You're not wrong. It does not exist still. All right. As we do, we're going to do the good, the bad, the ugly about Incredibles 2. Brian.
Yes, sir.
I think this discussion is going to be Brian heavy because Brian seems to like this, not in a bad way. I don't think anyone.
I'm trying to take the temperature of the room here, so
it's a little chilly. It's a little nippy in here.
This is my favorite part of the podcast, where none of us have talked to each other about our feelings, and the only people who know what they think of the film are Brian and Brad, because we look at each other's letterbox.
Yeah.
So I know Brian loved this movie.
I do. It's one of my favorites of the year. Again, we talked about it before.
Yep.
14 years in the making. My personally my favorite Pixar film. So I've been looking forward to this film for a very long time. And I guess going to the good in this film, there's a couple of different things that I really enjoyed about the film. I love the fact that the movie picks up exactly where the last one left off.
Yes.
At the end of that first film, that scene with the Underminer feels like a button to that movie, and that it was almost like a throwaway, just a nice little cap to that movie.
And again, like further perpetrating.
We really need to work on knowing the definitions of the words that we use.
Well, are you about to talk about some seasoning?
Yeah, perpetrating. Yeah, it adds the season of the Fantastic Four. The Underminer being like the mole man. Take it away, Brian. You're welcome that I interrupted you.
No problem at all. But yeah, I love how this movie picks up exactly after that, and we kind of build in the story that we're going to go in with this from that action sequence. And I don't know. I just thought that was really, really cool to really just kind of continue the story that we left off with in the first film, with the fact that superheroes are still underground, and you run into Bob Odenkirk's character.
That's who voiced him.
Yeah,
It looked exactly like him, Darren.
It did. And he's a guy that is in love with supers, and he wants to kind of bring supers back into the spotlight, give them a more positive perception, and he kind of thinks that Elastigirl is the best play for that. So I like how we're kind of continuing that story arc that we did from the first film. I think some of the action sequences that we see in this movie is just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I was watching that movie in awe. I mean, just some of the scenes with Elastigirl, with the runaway train when it's going in reverse, and how she like rides the bike, and the way they use her powers. It's just absolutely phenomenal. And then we see that throughout the film. I think all the action sequences that we see in this movie, even some of the smaller ones, like when she goes into that hotel,
that's my favorite action scene of the whole movie.
And then the thing with the lights when she's in the cage, and
to me, it's that moment where she's tracking the screenslaver, right?
Yeah.
And if listeners or new listeners don't realize this, we are going to spoil the whole film, so prepare thyself.
Yeah.
Watch the movie, then come back, or don't give a crap. But the moment when she's tracking the screenslaver's location through the city, the way Brad Bird shoots, for lack of a better word, Elastigirl's cross-city jaunt is like thrilling.
And that goes to another point. I mean, that not just to the filmmaking of the movie, and even to the characterizations of these characters. Brad Bird, and I'm sure you've heard this before, he directs this movie like it's a live action film, and it feels that way. The characters feel fully realized. They're fully realized characters. Going back to our fistful from last week, what I was talking about with Helen and Bob Parr, we see those conversations that they have about, okay, what's the next steps that we have to take with our family? How is it going to be with you, Bob, being at home with the kids, and I have to go out and do this, this PR work to try to, bring a good name back to superheroes. So I like all those different conversations that they have to have. I just thought a lot of that stuff was just absolutely great. Going back to some of the action sequences, just the way they're able to utilize their powers and how cinematically it's shown on screen.
Brian, is that my daughter's red panda that you were holding in your hand?
I was treating it like Daniel
Daniel Tiger.
Daniel Tiger. Sorry.
Sia's now watching you. She's like,
She's
you
like-
got my red panda. Get off my red panda.
Sometimes even Brian needs a cuddle.
I do. But like how you get to see their powers used on screen. The quick little fight at the house with Frozone when those other superheroes come to try to take the kids. That was phenomenal. Like the end sequence when there's another character named Void, and the way Void uses her powers, the way her and Elastigirl use their powers in tandem when she's trying to get to that airplane.
Or when she's brainwashed, when Void is brainwashed and fighting Elastigirl.
Yeah.
in that hallway.
The portals are opening up and Elastigirl's like punching herself.
It's lack of a better word, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. I thought just there was some gnarly action sequences in this movie. I really dug that. And then the whole aspect of the family dynamic, staying with Mr. Incredible at home with Jack with the kids. The whole idea of him having this bit of jealousy because he wants to be the one out there doing the stuff that Elastigirl is doing, but having to kind of stay home and really take care of the family, trying to help Dash with math, taking care of Jack, trying to help Violet deal with boys, or like trying to fix the problem that he caused in the beginning with the boy that she likes. But I think Edna said it best. It's like, part of being a hero is being a good parent, and I think that's a lesson that really kind of humbles Mr. Incredible that we learned throughout this film. And just seeing that whole dynamic between them, I thought was really, really great. So, yeah, I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed this film. It was just a lot of fun to watch.
All right, that's it for your good.
As far as I can think of right now, I'm sure I got more. But
Feel free to interrupt during Lisa's fine segment.
Oh man, okay. So this movie was not very sticky to me. So like I've never been good at going like this happened, then this happened, and with this movie in particular. And I apologize in advance. But one of the things I really enjoyed about this last watch was hearing these voices again. I love the unique, different timbres of the voice actors. Craig T. Nelson and Holly Hunter. Yeah.
Hearing Craig T. Nelson, you're just like, can he just take over TV again? Like,
I know.
Why isn't Craig T. Nelson in Westworld?
Coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also Sarah Vowell as a NPR nerd. I love hearing her play a teenage girl. It's a very unique voice, but I think that she really does capture that like kind of angsty teen thing. Sorry. I'm having issues with learning how to scroll on a computer. I like Huck Milner, who is an actual child playing an actual child. He plays Dash. Oh. And I think that he's like, because generally when you hear like a young boy's voice, it's generally some lady, a woman doing a young boy's voice, which is funny when you visualize it. But this is an actual child doing actual child acting. So I thought that was great. And I loved seeing these characters again. I love them as a family. I think that the way that Helen and Bob love each other is very marital, and they are very much in love, and you don't see that a lot in movies. Generally,
the point to my weekend dork.
Generally,
not my weekend dork, my fistful.
The couple
last week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
The couple gets together in the first movie and breaks up in the second. So I think that like a lot of the pitfalls Bob is falling into as a father is because he just wants to make room for his wife. Even him being a little bit jealous, he goes against his self-interest as best he can to make room for Elastigirl, to make room for the woman that he loves, because he knows that that's what she would want. Yeah. I enjoyed the subplot of Violet and her boyfriend.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was a pretty accurate representation of what it's like to have a crush in middle school, and how it's so humiliating to have those kinds of feelings, and that risk of acting on them, and the high drama that imposes. I enjoyed that. I loved the physics of Elastigirl. You've already talked about the action sequences, but I think that that was really above and beyond the way that she can stretch and retract and like on the train and on the bus, or flatten out. It's like her powers are like completely like thought through. Yeah. Where I think Violet, I still don't completely understand exactly what her powers are. Yeah, so that's my good. I think that's enough good, right?
Yeah.
Thanks.
All right, B.
The best thing about this movie is...
Oh, shit, bow.
God damn it, Lisa. Let me have my fucking... Good.
Sorry.
Yes, the best thing about this movie is Bow, the short film.
Damn.
I loved Bow.
So that y'all were eating it the other day?
Well, I mean...
That was unrelated.
I didn't think of it as necessarily unrelated. When you were like district dumplings, the reason I was like, yeah, because I just saw Bow.
Oh,
I wanted to eat that child. But what I loved about Bow was how it embraced the metaphor to capture that typical Pixar short of bittersweet, right? You know, this is an emotion that Pixar shorts have like mastered over time. But what Bao does is it really like when this Chinese Canadian grandmother chews on this dumpling and it cries out like a child the first time, like our audience just like lost it, like, whoa, what is happening? And then this little sweet dumpling, you know, begins to grow and takes on the likenesses of a child, and you know, she's wanting to take care of it, and you know, she's building all these protections around this child who's very fragile, like, you know, is deflating, you know, and is they have to refill the pork to keep his head in the proper size. He can't play with the kids in soccer because he'll have the pork kicked out of him, you know. But then, you know, Bao, the little dumpling, he wants a life on his own, and he goes out. He finally gets out of the house, and he finds a white girlfriend. And that like shatters the mother. She's like, no, what is this? You can't do this. And the kid resists this overly protective mom, and because of her extreme love and her extreme care, pushes the child away and out the door. And then then there's that moment where, you know, Bao's about to leave with his girlfriend, and she literally consumes him and eats the child. And like, again, for the second time, my audience lost it. They just, like, what is happening? And then, you know, the actual child enters, and we see that this dumpling has been a metaphor for the heartbreak and the love that this mother experiences through being a parent. And I found this to be an amazing theatrical experience. I loved the roller coaster ride that this film put emotionally in my crowd, and I'm excited to watch it again with another crowd. It's easily my favorite Pixar short, without a doubt. It is my favorite Pixar short.
So, Brad, you wrote a piece for Film School Rejects about Bao. So, had you seen Bao at that point, or
no? I hadn't seen Bao before actually watching it. I knew what was coming. I knew that it was this metaphorical piece, and that the dumpling was going to actually be a child.
Because for me, that was like it's the kind of metaphor that you have to get in retrospect, because it's bizarre while you're watching it. You clearly get like, it opens with this couple looking so sad,
depressed, and separated,
lonely,
and apart at the dinner table.
And then she, you know, has this child through this dumpling, and so, like, my first thought was, you know, she now has something to which she can give her love to, and it becomes a controlling thing in her life to control this little dumpling, to control her love. So when the turn happens and she eats the dumpling, like, I was right there with the rest of the crowd. I was like, what the F is this? You know? Same. And so then, you know, when the reveal happens and her actual son shows up and they eat their little, you know, round buns together, you know, like, I'm like, wow, this is a family that definitely eats as feelings, and they should really just look each other in the eyes and have a conversation. But, you know, like, then I was like, oh, like, I think it'll be definitely better on the second watch when I can kind of evolve along with this metaphor. But, like, that first watch through, I mean, I don't know what you thought, Darren. I thought it was weird.
Well, I got it when the son actually comes home. I go, oh, okay, she was projecting onto the dumpling, like, the loss of her son, and now he's back. But then it still felt weird, because I was like, all right, so
why she eat it?
Did that thing really exist? Was that in her mind? And then
no,
it didn't
metaphor.
Exist?
No, I mean, it exists in the context of the film. I mean, the animator. What's the animator's name? You've got it there, Lisa. Domi Shi. You know, he's writing about his own experience with his mom, and he's using animation as therapy, and I really, really appreciate it. But the manipulation that's going on there of our emotions is a manipulation that we've experienced in Up, right? Mm-hmm. Like, that's the opening scene of Up. Mm-hmm. And I just thought that it was really non-Pixar in a lot of ways, and non-American animation to embrace the metaphorical so severely, and to get across the pain that this mother has experienced. And the hopeful joy that happens when the kid comes back with his peace offering.
I thought it was really sweet. I just like when she ate him though. I just found that shocking. Like, damn.
Yeah.
She let her emotions get.
But like that's the great thing about this short film is, I mean, it hits you.
Yeah.
It pokes at you, and I don't think it's necessarily an easy watch. And it's certainly not going to be for everybody, and our crowd was probably not, of the same opinion that I was, or at least some members of that crowd.
I love
and maybe Lisa too.
I love the fact that it was such an intensely personal story, because Pixar is such a team effort, and the fact that a team can be whittled down to give a single voice. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. All right. Is that it for your good?
I mean, that was my favorite thing. I echo what Brian was saying about the action. I think the action is great. I echo what Lisa was saying about the voice cast. I mean, just from the original film, I love this family, and it's great to see them again in action. My favorite sequence, though, of the entire film is Jack Jack versus the raccoon, which was like a short film unto itself. And, what a treat it is to see Jack Jack discovering new power after new power and having this intense battle with this poor raccoon.
I like the fact that the raccoon seemed really determined. Like, the raccoon was just like, okay, now it's on. Generally, you'd think
But there's that shot after Jack Jack has knocked it through all the patio chairs, and it's trapped in the last patio chair. And it can't free itself, and then it sees Jack Jack light on fire. It's a real menacing horror movie shot.
Yeah,
and I was like, raccoon, you got to get out of there because Jack Jack's gonna kill you.
Yeah,
I loved that.
Yeah.
That's going to be the next movie when Jack Jack kills a person and then all of the Incredibles have to cover it up.
Damn.
That's some family drama right there.
Yes. Oh, my goodness.
That is some high stakes staircase shit.
I hope that doesn't happen. That's it for your good?
Yeah, for now. Holly Hunter as Elastigirl is great.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
All right. I'll echo what Brian said. I love the opening. Brian said that he mentioned that the beginning of the film picks up right where the previous film left off, and then he went and he spoke about the action sequences. But like that first action sequence, that opening scene is a huge action sequence.
You've been undermined.
Yeah, that one was really cool. Like what Brian and Lisa both talked about as far as Elastigirl's the use of her powers in conjunction with her motorcycle, how her motorcycle can split in half, and so it's just very inventive with the recreation of their powers. And Brad, you mentioned the void when she was making portals as she was in that hallway fighting Elastigirl. I thought all that stuff was ingenious. Even the fight at the house when Frozone came in to help the kids fight off those people who were under screen slavers' control. The last, I actually think I prefer the end of this film, that sequence on the boat, to the first film. I really enjoyed that, and it just made Frozone that much more of a badass, that he was able to like use his powers and create that huge frozen wave to stop their boat. I like that they gave Frozone a lot more to do in this film. That's one of my good points.
Yeah, certainly.
And another good point I would say is I love the art style of The Incredibles.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the art style of The Incredibles.
And like Brad Bird, having seen Iron Giant, the first Incredibles, and Tomorrowland, he's obsessed with that 50s B movie sci-fi aesthetic.
Yeah.
And this is probably that vibe at its apex.
Yeah. And I just dig that. I just dig that whole, like when they go into so they're loaned that home.
Oh yeah.
When they first walk in and Dash is basically me. Oh my god, this place is awesome! Like pushing all the buttons and stuff like that. I like the decor. Edna, like I love all the stuff with her and the baby. The fight with Jack and the raccoon.
Well, Edna like hating children and not wanting to be near a child, and then discovering that Jack has this unlimitless power set.
Yeah.
And her going, yeah, I'll take this baby because I want to experiment on this thing.
I really enjoyed all
And
of it.
I love the relationship that they create, and then Jack starts becoming Edna a little bit. It's so cute.
Oh, yes. Yeah. He's walking down the hallway doing her mannerisms. Yeah, I really dug that, too. I basically I echo everything that you all stated in addition to the stuff that I added on to it. So those are my good. B, your bad.
Bad for me, I guess we're all probably going to talk about the villain. To me, I didn't have too much of an issue with screen slavery, but I mean, it did feel kind of predictable. Since this is spoilers, Bob Odenkirk's
I thought it was him.
Catherine
character.
Keener.
You did? You're dumb.
I was thinking, let me go back here. Bob Odenkirk, Evelyn Deaver, and what was his name? Winston.
Captain Keener, that's the sister?
Yeah.
That was, Oh.
Yeah, so
There's these things called credits at the end of movies, Darren.
No. I was talking to CL.
So yeah, so
Okay.
we I think that was kind of telegraphed, especially when you see that conversation again. Another great conversation that Brad Bird was able to kind of develop when you see Evelyn and Helen talking right before she asks her to kind of go ahead and try to do a tracking device to try to find Screenslaver. Around that time, you can kind of sense who the villain is and when that reveal is going to come. So that was kind of predictable.
But also kind of in keeping with the first film and Syndrome. And
Yeah, I mean, Syndrome was pretty obvious too. And so that, like I said, that doesn't really bother me. I guess the motivation behind it, as far as like what happened to her parents, it's interesting to see that dynamic as far as like how she took her parents' death and how I want to call him by his name, Winston Deaver took their death, and revealing like their opposite opinions about superheroes. So I thought a lot of it was intriguing, but yeah, I guess you can say that the villain definitely doesn't really kind of live up. But ultimately, I mean, we say this about Marvel films as well. It really just comes down to really about the Parr family and the dynamics between them and the relationships that they carry throughout the film. And to me, that's really what kind of carries this movie through. So, I mean, I could forgive the Screenslaver. I'm going back to my likes, but yeah, that's probably my biggest criticism was the villain and a little bit of the pacing. I mean, you could start to feel the length of the film in certain parts, but outside of that, I mean, I pretty much loved it.
All right, Wife Dork.
I felt like the plot too much followed the plot of the first film, and we didn't. I think with picking up exactly where they left off in the last movie, there was not a lot of new stuff to say. Like, being part of a family is full of compromise, and we do want to protect our children and keep them safe, but we also want to give them autonomy and give them room to be themselves. Like, that's pretty much the message of both films. I like the fact that there was a little bit of the role reversal with the mom having the opportunity of being the superhero and being the favorite. But I thought the fact that the dad was bad at everything was kind of a cliche, even with this kind of taking place in like a pseudo 50s environment.
It was still just Mr. Mom.
Exactly. There are things that dads are good at, it doesn't have to be. And the fact that they're doing new math, like new math is a present issue. Mm-hmm. And so the time period thing was confusing to me. The aesthetic with the modern, but
that's what the first film was, though.
Yeah, I know. Even so, though, like to me, like.
I like
Is the reason the dad? Well, I'm using it specifically a reference to the fact that apparently up until this point, like Bob's job as a father was just like pass out high fives and sit with them at dinner.
Yeah, I think so.
So to me, I just didn't find that particularly innovative,
Mm-hmm.
So Yeah, and I did get bored. Like, you know me in action scenes. There's only so many I can take before I get snoozy, sleepy beepy. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Brad, you're bad.
I don't think there's anything in this movie that's actually bad. My complaint about the film is it's more of the same, which could also be a positive.
Yeah.
If you love The Incredibles, The Incredibles 2 takes what you loved then and does it again. So if you're at home and you're going to, back-to-back Incredibles, boom, great evening spent. Wonderful. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Screenslaver story, not particularly interesting. I love the action of Elastigirl, but when I was with her, I really didn't care about the plot. Like, I didn't care who Screenslaver was. I just wanted to get back to the family dynamics. I wanted to get back to the Mr. Mom story. Craig T. Nelson excels at being terrible and acknowledging that he's not as good as he wants to be, even though he refuses to admit to anyone that he's less than Mr. Incredible. And seeing his emotional conflict at Jack, he's like, oh my God, yes, Jack's going to be amazing. Look at this, pew, pew, pew. But then also, shit, he's in these other dimensions. I'm terrified. I'm just going to have to keep giving him cookies. And, he's got the bags under his eyes. They're bloodshot. Love all of that stuff. So whenever the film got away from that, and again, the peak for me was the raccoon battle. At that moment, I was like, this is amazing. So when it went back to the Screenslaver mystery and that fact that we all knew it was Catherine Keener, or at the very least we knew it was one of them, right? Yeah. I didn't find that particularly interesting. And then the other group of heroes I didn't care about. While I thought some of their powers were cool, some of their powers terrifying and disgusting.
Agreed.
That's not where my excitement, lays. So I wonder if I saw this film first, would I give it the 4-star rating that I give the first film? And is my 3-star rating of Incredibles 2 simply a fact that it's a more of the same? And then, it was a fun time. I had a good time.
There's an episode of The Monkees
Oh, boy.
that was directed by Mickey Dolenz. It was the last Monkees episode, and it is by far the trippiest Monkees episode. It's called The Frodis Caper, and there is the villain is Wizard Glick, and he is essentially the screen slaver.
Yeah.
What is he called?
Screenslaver.
The screenslaver, and he does the thing where he gets people glued to their televisions. It's just like the same thing.
Maybe that's where they got it from.
That's
Oh,
also
yeah,
the,
about Monkey
the
fans.
plot of Head, basically.
Yeah, being trapped in the box.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I can't get mad at the movie.
The way it was resolved in the Frodis Caper was it turned out that the Frodis was a plant, and you just have to be one with the plant, and then you can just lie in the grass and be cool.
Oh, okay.
That was unexpected. That was a twist ending.
Weed.
That is not how Incredibles 2 ends, ladies and gentlemen.
No.
I don't know how Incredibles 2 ends because I fell asleep.
So it doesn't end like that, Lisa. Okay.
Okay, boo.
As far as my bad, basically, both what Brad said and what Lisa said. It's not a bad movie. I had fun with it. Sia enjoyed it. Everything I said about the good of the film holds true, and that's really what got me through the screening. But the one thing that I disliked about this movie and every movie that does this is what you said, Lisa, about, like, for me personally, as a father now, even before I was a father, but definitely as a father now, I'm sick and tired of seeing the movie where when the father is left to do what the mother does because the mother has to go out, that he's incapable or he just can't do it. Like this, because for me,
Darren's trying to be Mr. Incredible.
I understand that for some people that's a reality, but for me, that was never my reality. My father raised me by himself since I was 2. And so if there was ever any, whatever what Parr was going through, Bob Parr, if there was ever any of that, like I never saw it. Like I just remember my whole childhood, my whole life, my father acing that shit. And I know that's not the reality of it. I know there were times when he struggled. I know there were times when it was difficult for him, but I only saw him raising me on his own and doing it successfully. And I'm a single parent. I'm a co-parent, but I don't have like those, like, it's not, for me, it's not impossible. It's not a Herculean task that I have to just call up every woman in my life, my aunts, my stepmother, my daughter's mom.
Edna mode.
I don't know how you do this. How do you change diapers? How do I do that? How am I supposed to drop her off at school and then get to work? Like that.
Really, we should be asking Sia this.
Sia will tell you. Sia will tell you. Like and that's why I'm able to do that, because like I said before, when she looks at me and sees Superman, I have to be that. Yeah. So whatever that means I have to do that, because I have to live up to that. And so if that means I have to get up extra early in the morning to do her hair and to get her clothes ready and to get her dressed and then get myself ready and then take her to school and then but the night before help her with her homework, then that's just what I do. And it's not a big deal. We do it all the time. It's nothing.
I lived in an Ask Your Mom house. Like, I totally did. My dad, his job was to get himself to work and return home from work. And when he was home from work, he loved us and he took care of us, but his job was to sit with us at dinner and play solitaire on the computer and then go to bed. And that's just, but I mean, like, in terms of like a plot device in a movie, like, we've seen it done. We see it done in every single TV commercial. It's always the dude going like, how do I mop the floor? Right. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but like, I don't know. I think
my dad mowed the lawn.
Craig T. Nelson brought a lot of life and humor to the situation, and I loved watching him struggle. Okay,
that's fine. We're not judging you.
No, I agree. Like, he's great in it, and even like the scenes like with Bob Parr, like there's nothing bad about those scenes. I'm just talking about just the principle of it. Like, for me, that's when it comes to a father and in film or in TV or whatever. Like, that's always the stereotype. And for me personally, I'm just tired of seeing that shit. I mean, when we're talking about representation, I mean, that's like, where's my dad's representation of what he went through and his success in doing it on his own? And there are a bunch of fathers out there that are like that. Where's their representation?
The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor.
God damn it! I need better representation than that. 'Cause when I'm out somewhere and see his hair's messed up and I do her hair, when people see that, especially women and everything, oh my God, you're such a good dad or whatever. It shouldn't even be like spotting a unicorn out in the wild. Like, I just it should be a normal thing. Like, but it doesn't. It doesn't come across like that in society. So I don't know. Like, sorry, Brian, I didn't mean to wake you up first. Secondly, I'm not trying to talk down on your movie. But that was my only issue with it. But everything else, like, I had a good time with it. So yeah. Now, this should be real quick. This is a rhetorical question almost. You're ugly about the film.
None.
Gotcha. All right, wife Dork.
Yes. You know what I'm going to say. The character Reflux.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was wondering how you're going to take that.
Luckily, not really. Like, I'm not like, fire breathing doesn't really bother me. Okay. Like, if it was like, but Brad did cover my eyes, so I'm not exactly sure what happened.
I mean, it's not V.
But
it's lava.
It's like lava.
It's molten lava.
I don't think I would like that very much.
But it's his frog throat that's really gross to me.
Yeah. He did that.
I thought it was a little bit nasty.
Yeah. I also really thought Screech was unsettling. that owl guy.
I thought he was kind of cute.
Because that wasn't a costume, right? That was him, right?
That's just what he looked like.
When his head turned around like an owl, I was like, oh, God, no.
I thought it was
I like the one hero that could, like, crush
Crusher?
the metal.
Yeah. He does not uncrush.
Yeah, he does uncrush.
I would not unpunch you. Like, well, how does that work?
That was great.
That was pretty funny.
That was pretty good.
So that's it, B, for your ugly.
My ugly? My ugly is how you guys are going to respond to when I say that Elastigirl is hot.
Yeah, she's super hot. She's bad.
Like it's weird, but there's something about the design.
Because she's thick.
She's shaped like Nicki Minaj.
Yeah.
Look, she just had a baby.
It's just like
I can't tell.
She's just.
She's got them childbearing hips.
Elastigirl is hot.
She knows how to fill a leotard.
I think
good.
that's pretty irresponsible of Pixar to make her look. That is not attainable to have
And, you know,
zero waist and badass monster hips.
Yeah. So, and you know, Holly Hunter's awesome. You know, super fine.
The voice work she does is great.
So is that my ugly? I guess not, because you guys all seemed on board with that. I guess I'm with Brian. I don't really have an ugly. I mean, you know, that bow moment maybe might be the ugly when the mom eats the baby.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, I don't know.
All right. I don't have an ugly. This movie, the movie is gorgeous. We talked about in my fistful last week, fistful of Pixar. I talked about the leaps and bounds technology-wise that Pixar makes, and while the movie is not a huge, giant technological step visually from the first film, but there are areas where I can tell that they've stepped their game up. The level of detail.
Going back to the pursuit scene of Elastigirl.
Yeah.
Like those shots, you know, very noirish. I mean, it's incredible.
The
that
lighting.
city, the lighting.
The lighting of it is great.
And just the level of detail and textures and stuff. So I mean, it's a gorgeous film. So visually, there's no ugly. Story-wise, thematically, there's nothing ugly about it. So I would also agree that I don't have anything as far as ugly.
That brick dude's ugly.
Brick dude?
Oh,
Brick.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's an ugly looking dude.
Hold on. Pootie Tat, come here. You saw The Incredibles 2, right? What'd you think about it? Tell the people.
It was good.
What's your favorite part?
When the Elastigirl fighted Void.
Oh, that was fun.
Okay. So, yeah, Pootie Tat likes it. She said it was good. She loves when Void and
I
Elastigirl
guess,
fought.
you know, her opinion overrides anybody else's opinion. So
does it?
So I guess I have to take my opinion back. Incredibles 2 was good.
It wasn't good before
It was fine. It's moved one letter in the alphabet.
Okay.
From F to G.
Yeah. All right. So that's going to do it for us, ladies and gentlemen. Hit us up on social media. If you've seen the film, let us know what you thought at ItModcast. You can reach Brian at the Turtle Dork on Twitter, at the Turtle Dork 1 on Instagram, and at Brian William Young on Facebook. What are you looking forward to this week? Is Jurassic World, right?
Not really.
That's coming out this week?
Yeah.
But you're not looking forward to it?
I mean, I got my tickets.
Yeah.
It's a movie. Like Brad says, it's a movie.
Yeah.
I can't get into
I'm more excited about Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom than you are. I'm excited. Like, that second trailer, seeing the dinosaurs in the house, crawling around, going after that little girl who's sleeping in her bed. That interests me.
I mean, the thing that really gets me excited is J.A. Bayona. I like him as a director. I enjoyed Monster Calls. I enjoyed The Impossible. I think he can bring a darker tone, hopefully, to this. But I wasn't thrilled with Jurassic World. To me, it's the disposable, forgettable film. And
it's the second best Jurassic Park movie, though.
Damn.
Still not saying much.
It's true. It's true.
So I mean, we'll see. We'll see. But I can't say I'm like eager to see it. I'm not excited to see it.
All right. Wife Dork can be found on Twitter at Baked Dork and at Sidewalk Siren. Also on Instagram and Letterboxd at Sidewalk Siren. Baked Dork, what are you looking forward to this week?
It's crazy that I went from going like, you know, like now that Avengers is out, there's like no movies, to going like, I'm behind in movies.
Yes, you are.
So I still haven't seen First Reformed. I'm totally looking forward to that. I guess I'll say that that's the one I'm looking forward to the most.
Okay.
Are we going to do that this week?
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay. You're checking out Hearts Beats Loud as well, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Brad Gullickson is at Mouthdork on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Letterboxd, and Untapped. B, what are you looking forward to this week besides Jurassic Park?
On Wednesday at the Alamo Drafthouse in One Loudon, the show in Jason and the Argonauts.
What?
You didn't know that?
I did not know that.
Yes, sir. Wednesday, 7 o'clock, or no, maybe 7:40. You better be there. I'm crazy excited. That's one of my all-time favorite movies.
Oh my goodness!
And I've never seen a Harryhausen film on the big screen.
Neither have I.
So I'm really, really stoked.
I haven't seen that movie since I was a kid.
Oh, that's my favorite Hercules. He's one of the sailors on the Argo.
Yeah.
And that Hercules, that's the guy. When I think Hercules, it's like, yeah, that's the dude.
Yeah. Oh man, I did not know what I was playing. All right, well, I've answered my own question. I'm Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, on all social medias. I'm looking forward to Jason and the Argonauts, even more so than the Jurassic Park movie that's coming out.
Oh, without doubt.
But I'm gonna. Pooh, do you want to see the Jurassic Park movie? Okay, so we'll be going to see the Jurassic Park movie. That's going to do it for us. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of your week. Be on the lookout. At the end of the week, we got a fistful of what is it?
Genetic creatures in honor of
genetically enhanced creatures.
Genetically enhanced creatures.
That's
in honor
that's
of
an arm.
Lost
An armful.
That's an armful.
That's an armful.
Because I just want to snuggle them all in a big hug.
So be on the lookout for that. So that's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening.
Until next time.
Bye.